at best dubious. Some of us are acutely aware of America's mendaciveness in the affairs of other countries in the past 100 years or more. However, let us put our house in order so that they will have no excuse to come over here. Our inability to tackle banditry, kidnapping, and other security challenges doesn't speak well of us as a serious nation. We can do better. These challenges not only affect our national stability, but also undermine development, education, and well-being of our citizens. It's against this background that today's lecture becomes imperative. We are particularly privileged to host our guest speaker, a man whose service to our nation is both distinguished and enduring. Our guest speaker today is a retired military leader, not only a retired military leader, but also a strategist, a patriot, and someone who has a first-hand experience at the highest level of security operations in Nigeria. General Dambazau's insights will help us better understand the root causes, current dynamics, and perhaps more importantly, the path forward. While the armed forces and security agencies carry a heavy burden, the responsibility of securing our nation is a shared one. As members of civil society, we must remain engaged, informed, and committed to peace building in our communities. I encourage all of us to listen actively, attentively, and engage thoughtfully, and live here inspired to be part of the solutions Nigeria so urgently requires. Once again, we thank our distinguished speaker, chairman, and panelists for honoring our invitation. I also wish to thank my brother and Ali Mohammed Ali, the Chief Executive of News Agency of Nigeria, for the invaluable contribution he made to ensure that today's event takes place. We also thank all those who are attending, who have made time out to be part of this conversation. Thank you very much and enjoy the lecture.
Here's another round of applause for President of President Mr. Fred Honorable. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. We shall duly recognize the presence of some of our guests here. We're trying to make sure that we get it right. And so that when the whole thing begins, we can all participate inclusively. Most distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a guest speaker, discussants, friends of Just Friends Club of Nigeria, it gives me especially great pleasure to now invite Chairman of the occasion, former Director General of the NTA, founder Tony Iredia, University of Communication, Benin City, Professor Tony Osairedia, for the chairman's remarks. Please let's welcome him.
Our most distinguished guest speaker, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Just Friends for giving me an assignment I haven't done for a very long time. I never found myself doing that. Usually I'm guest speaker. So for once, somebody thinks I should listen. I'm happy that he asked to listen to somebody who knows the topic. And when I was invited
I actually was very sure I wouldn't do it. And the president would testify. I started looking for some flimsy excuses. I said, well, I'm in Benin, and I just came here yesterday, and I'm not ready to live here in the next 2 weeks. Please, sir. I said, by the way, what exactly do you want me to do? To chair the conference? Said yes. I said, chairman said, opening speech, that's all? Say yes. Well, anybody can do that. Why do you need to call somebody all the way from Benin to come and do just chairman? And then he insisted. I said, okay, I know how to do it. Send a ticket. So usually when you say that, 50% of those looking for you will stand aside. The next thing he said, sir, do you want us to buy it, or do we send the money for you to buy it? At that point, I now took the card and looked at it very well. I said, oh, there are Dambazau. Okay. I know a friend who told me something about him someday. He said, all of us have something in common. I said, me and the general. What will I have in common with people that can kill? This is school. In school, everybody was joining the army. People like us who know that we are effeminate. Don't try such things. You see that that was how myself or something come and say it again. So he said, no. Both of you held positions in this country at the time when the holder and the position looked alike. That is, when a man is holding a position into which he fits squarely, you remember him. Say, yes. And so really, it occurred to me that I never really remembered that Dambazau was minister. What I remember was the chief of army staff. And I remember that, and the next thing I remember is the Atiwa. You see the gap. So you see how many people you can remember. When you make an impact, or you come into a position at the right time, with the right requisites and credentials, people don't forget you. So at that point, I said, okay, ticket or no ticket. So if you find me for coming, there are numbers. I think there are a lot of things that put this club in a specific position. I asked my PA to call, and he called and said, what time did you say is the event? I said 9:30. Called me, said, sir, they said 9:30. I said, in Nigeria, it's 9:30. So okay, they mean we should be there at 9:30 so I can start at 11. So I said, no, the man said 9:30. That's all right. If I get there at 9:30 and this event doesn't start, this friend will know who I am. But luckily for him, as soon as I got dressed, well before 9:30, some people in office, different from the Dambazau we used to, they held up the road, we couldn't pass. Every movement. And so I was on that road until I got a call. Where are you? I said, just getting out of the queue. And I live very close. So 9:30, okay. People can be having events in Nigeria like that. That would be good. If I can be having fix the time and fix to the time, that would be great. Now to the event itself. don't know whether the government's house should say has. Because I used to be an ATA. So I know how to go back. You know, at the time this topic was fixed, Donald Trump had not said anything. So at that point, not many people would have seen the experience of this topic. But today we all see it. And if it was more publicized than it was, many people would have come. Because they said, okay, let's hear what Dambazau is going to say to Donald Trump. I'm lucky that I'm here. Because in the last 48 hours, I've not heard anybody who has said anything to what Donald Trump said. As it usually is in Nigeria. The topic is made and people are saying all kinds of periphery things around the topic. People are discussing issues that are ancillary to the subject matter. Say, oh, they are also killing Muslims. Is Trump talking about Muslims? It's not. He's not also telling you that it's balanced and that he's interested in whether they kill this side of it. That's not what he's saying. He made a point, follow that point. I'm happy that we are where we are today because it's keeping everybody on the stools. Even there was in this country, Baraden told us that the military was colluding with those killing people. Did anybody do anything? It's a shame. We didn't do anything. In fact, they were trying to tell us that the man is talking nonsense. Now, here we are. And it happens in every sphere, not only in military or defense, it's even happening in politics. Where who usually wouldn't see the need to go and vote, I go and vote for Mr. A because he belongs to party B. He wins. He gets into office. He unilaterally moves to party C that I didn't vote for. Everybody thinks it is okay, but it's convenient. Until it causes one problem, and one person will now issue a warning. We must learn to do things the right way, so we can make progress. I pray that the speech today will get to those who matter, and they will listen, and see what we can do. Some of us used to quarrel about all these issues that are coming up today, but no one listened. We are now in the age of listening. And we have the speakers who know what to say. We have the topic which is relevant for today. Me, I'm all ears. I hope you all are. And thank you.
Let's begin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are indeed honored by your presence here this morning. Before we invite a guest speaker, because I always want to have our seatbelts fastened, we recognize the presence of Mr. Howell Ibe, retired director, Bureau of Public Enterprises. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. We welcome you, members introduction. Thank you also for honoring us. Therefore, the Zachary is also there with us. Thank you, sir. We are very honored. My senior colleague, who was also mentored by Uncle Gatoni Radia, Mr. Tommy Odemige is here as well. Was very one interesting pillar. Yes, okay. Thank you very much, sir. We welcome you all. We shall recognize other distinguished guests as we go along. Thankfully, Air Vice Marshal Bolingo Xperia is here, so you speak to the issues on the topic Nigerian security challenges and the quest for national cohesion, a new paradigm for internal security architecture and governance. I hope the PA to General, okay, you're here, okay, fantastic, all right. Most distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts as we welcome Lieutenant General AbdulRahman B. Dambazau.
Thank you very much. The chairman of this occasion, Professor Tony Avidian. By the way, in those days, in 98, there were two people that I never missed the screen when they were there. One of them is the professor sitting here. The other one is Frank Polizzi. I don't know what I want to seize this opportunity to thank you so much for your contributions in the communication sector, particularly the electronic media. And also to congratulate you further for having this specialized university of communication. The president of the Trust Friends Club of Nigeria, other distinguished officers in this team, esteemed members of the club, our distinguished guests here this morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to present this keynote address at the 7th annual public lecture of the Just Friends Club of Nigeria. Rather than formal address, I see it more of an opportunity to rub minds about the security of our nation. Today, as you all know, I'll be discussing about Nigeria's security challenges and the quest for national cohesion, a new paradigm for internal security architecture. I try to cover all the 6 sub-themes as you asked, and I hope that I've succeeded in achieving that. This presentation draws on my experience in security and governance and aims to provide a comprehensive overview of the current challenges, their root causes, and the way forward for Nigeria's internal security. And I hope by the end of the presentation, we will be in a position to appreciate our existential security challenges in Nigeria, the need for unity and social cohesion in tackling them, and of course, redesign our internal security architecture for effective provision of the security and well-being of Nigerians. Let us begin by setting the context of our discussion. Security in the Nigerian context is fundamentally about protecting lives, property, and well-being of our society, of the citizens of the society. Our Constitution makes it very, very clear. If you check chapter 2 of the Constitution, 2B, to be specific, it says, and I quote, "The security and welfare of the people should be the primary focus of government," unquote. Now, since 1999, when the Constitution took effect, and when this democratic era began, have we achieved this purpose? Despite the increase in investments in security, both in terms of budgetary allocations and the deployment of military assets, it has been argued that Nigeria continues to face persistent security threats. This raises important questions. So, why do these threats persist? Despite all the efforts, including investment that has been made significantly. Second, how do we modernize our security institutions while upholding civil liberties and human rights? Is it possible to develop an inclusive, intelligence-led security framework that reflects Nigeria's diversity history? Final question here is, what role should non-state actors play in peace building? Are they threats or partners? These are questions I hope should address as we move through this conversation. Now let's see our understanding of the security environment here. To address Nigeria's security challenges, we must first understand what security truly means. Globally, the concept of security has shifted from state-centric, which focus on protecting borders and sovereignty. As you know, Section 217 of the Nigerian Constitution says the military's responsibility is to protect Nigerian sovereignty and territorial integrity. And that has been shifted to being people-centric. That is prioritizing on human security. The focus is no longer on the traditional military security. Human security is all-encompassing. It is about protecting individuals' lives, property, and well-being. It addresses not just military threats, but also socio-economic and governance issues, such as poverty, illiteracy, disease, unemployment, corruption, and environmental degradation. As Kofi Annan once said, human security encompasses human rights, good governance, access to education and healthcare, and opportunities for all. Progress in these areas is essential for reducing poverty, fostering economic growth, and preventing conflict. Ultimately, human security is about freedom from fear, from freedom from want, and ensuring a healthy environment for future generations. It was US President Franklin Roosevelt in the State of the Union address in 1941, in which he argued for US involvement in World War II. He articulated 4 essential freedoms: fear, want, expression, and worship, trying to explain how they were threatened globally and needed to be defended. This is where these 2 freedoms come from: freedom from want and freedom from fear. Now, looking at Nigeria's security challenges, Nigeria faces a wide range of complex security challenges. Physical threats coming from groups such as Boko Haram, bandits, IPOC, militants, and urban criminal gangs. These threats have eroded the sense of safety in homes, markets, places of worship, and farmlands. But the challenges go beyond physical violence. Human security issues such as poverty, unemployment, hunger, disease, and illiteracy are also widespread in Nigeria. Despite Nigeria's abundant resources, nearly half of the population is projected to live below poverty line in 2024, with about 90 million Nigerians affected. And 65% of Nigerians experience multi-dimensional poverty. Conventional crimes such as murder, rape, theft, burglary, armed robbery, etc., are only overshadowed by terrorism and insurgency, but they are still posing serious threats in society. Emerging security threats like cybercrime, money laundering, modern slavery, the proliferation of firearms, fueled by technology, porous borders, and regional instability are also growing. These challenges are interconnected and require a comprehensive and holistic response. How do the root causes, triggers, and drivers sustain insurgency or insecurity? The answer lies in a complex interplay of root causes, triggers, and drivers. The image you see there depicts the relationship between root causes and Nigeria's security challenges. One major issue is the tendency to oversimplify complex problems, often influenced by emotions, religious or ethnic intolerance, and denial of the reality. For quite a lot of elites, Nigeria doesn't exist because the 1914 amalgamation was a ruse, but we're still here. Poor governance is a key driver. This includes inadequate welfare for security personnel, weak coordination among agencies, and underdeveloped criminal justice institutions. Other factors will include corruption, inconsistent law enforcement of laws, and overstretched military and misallocated police resources. You find that the military is deployed all over the country, in all the 6 political zones. They are involved in routine policing, in roadblocks and checkpoints, and so on and so forth. But of course, those duties do not correspond with number of boots on ground and also the resources available for them. And at the same time, responsibility, constitutional responsibility for them in terms of maintaining the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country has been neglected to some extent. For misallocation of police resources, just a few minutes ago, the chairman said that when he was coming out, there was a movement of VIP also. And they were held on for several minutes before they were let go. And I was also narrating to him that when I was a minister, I was going for a FEC meeting. And my security team sighted a convoy coming the opposite direction. So we had to stop, thinking it was the vice president. It was a very long convoy. After it has passed, I realized that it was a BGSS. Kind of disallocation of resources. And also, for anybody, VIP, or anybody who has the money to pay, you can always hire police escorts in this country. So you find that those who do not have those who cannot afford certainly will not have that protection. Addressing these issues required a coordinated approach involving government, community leaders, immediate neighbors, and international partners. For our immediate neighbors, Nigeria's current relationship with Niger and the establishment of the Confederation of the Sahel States, that is of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, after their withdrawal from ECOWAS, is a big setback to Nigeria's efforts on both national and regional security, because most of the firearms coming into Nigeria come through those countries. And if they don't partner with us, they don't cooperate, then we're in trouble. I must emphasize here that military solutions alone are not enough. We need multidimensional strategies that incorporate social, economic, and governance reforms. Why threats persist despite investment? Is another critical question. Why do they persist? We need to know what we invest on and whether such investments consider our technical, tactical, operational, and strategic goals. Very often you find that we make budgets, but not every kobo in the budget is released. You find that the implementation of budget mostly doesn't go beyond 40%. But at the same time, the amount of money budgeted for is always reflected. That is one issue. The second issue I'm still talking about in terms of investments. The second issue is that most of the items on the budgets are contractors driven. And sometimes mostly through the National Assembly. An item will be presented by a contractor through a senator or member of House. And that item is put into the budget even without the service knowing that, or interested in that, or whether the item is even useful to the service. So we have all that kind of problems. So if you go see that so much has been invested and the situation has not only remained the same, but is worsening. These are the kind of things we are looking at. But again, like I mentioned, investment on military alone will not solve our problems because we have to invest in human security. And this is a role that subnationals, the governors of this country, will be held responsible because the issue of education, the issue of healthcare are mostly their responsibility, particularly when you talk of education, primary and secondary education, where the foundations are laid. And for healthcare services, where you have the issue of primary healthcare, is squarely the responsibility of the government, not the construction of roads as they do mostly. So if you invest in military, you don't invest in human security, then you still have the problem. And if it doesn't remain where it is going to grow worse. Often our perception of security is limited to the kinetic, the military. Majors neglecting the importance of non-kinetic societal approaches. A lot of people in this country, 70–80% of us think that it's only the military that can solve the problems in security in Nigeria, but that is wrong. The military has so much to do. For one, the military, the constitutional responsibility of the military is very, very clear. Secondly, by training, the military is not trained to carry out policing duties, which they do now. And also by law, carrying out policing duties, you are expected to use non-lethal weapons. But of course, even our police now carry assault rifles. So these are the contradictions. But I understandably too that the kind of confrontation the country is having with non-violent, non-state actors who carry all kinds of weapons are things that, of course, under normal circumstances, our police will not be able to handle. But then, like I want to note this, that some of the things happening today, if we had had police that has been effective in law and order, law enforcement, several years back, some of the things we are experiencing today would not happen. And most of these issues started as very local issues that could be handled through law enforcement. I think Boko Haram started as a local issue, an issue that was triggered by the wearing law, that said every motorcyclist must wear crash helmets. And that was what happened. And when some of the elements of Mohammed Yusuf, I think they were on the way to bury the dead, one person that died among them. And they were not wearing the crash helmets. The police confronted them. And when that happened, there was fracas. And I think the police shot a couple of them, some were wounded, one or two died. So Mohammed Yusuf swore that he would take revenge. And a few weeks later, they started attacking police stations. And this is when late President Yar'Adua, I was chief of army staff, and I was in China, got a call that they said we should clear the enclave because the governor then came to brief him, said we should clear the enclave. And that we did. After we cleared the enclave, we arrested Mohammed Yusuf and quite a number of them. But of course, as military, we were not supposed to hold them. We were supposed to hand them over to the police. And that was what we did. We handed them over to the police. But unfortunately, the police executed them there, in front of the camera. And that was taken all over the world. Al Jazeera, if you remember, took those pictures, sent them all over the world. And that was when the beginning. Some of them who escaped went on the ground and used those images to attract sympathy. And that was how now they recruited and came out and started politics. So it was a local issue that would have been solved locally. And I believe that if we do that, we'll be able to handle some of we will be getting to where we are. Even when investments are made in military security, issues such as lack of transparency and incomplete implementation undermine their effectiveness. I've mentioned that external or foreign interest is another factor sustaining insecurity in Nigeria. Of course, without the enemy within, the enemy without can do nothing. The recent talks of Christian genocide in Nigeria speaks volume of external interest. I will leave it at that. So that our panelists will give them useful perspectives on Trump's threat to use force on Nigeria to protect Christians. But I want to say that America doesn't protect anybody's interest in what is happening. I lived in America and I know. I studied masters in political science and I mixed very well with some. America doesn't protect anybody's interests. They protect theirs. And we almost understand that. Security investments must therefore go beyond bullets and boots. We cannot solve Nigeria's challenges through force alone. A whole of society approach is needed, involving government, civil society, and local communities. Only by addressing the broader definition of security can we hope to make lasting progress. Governance and policy gaps. Poor governance is another major reason why security threats persist. Nigeria ranks low in governance. And I will show the independent rankings in the next slide. Some of the indicators include weak oversight, corruption, human rights abuses, and lack of capacity within security institutions. When I talk of capacity, any security agency, whether that is operational, must have the capacity not only to monitor, our security sector agencies must have the capacity of not only to monitor, but also the capacity to respond to emergencies. These two capacities are not balanced. It's going to be very, very difficult to contain the extent of insecurity. Now, I give two examples, which are recent. The attack on Abuja Kaduna train. It took several hours for that attack. It took several hours to execute that operation, the terrorists, and took away significant number of passengers and walked through the forest from Kaduna, I think, to somewhere in Niger State. But throughout this period, there wasn't response that would have traced them, and dealt with them. The second one is attack on Kuje prison. The same thing that nothing was achieved to avert that, to either avert that or even to trace them. Some of the indicators include oversight, corruption, human rights abuses, and lack of capacity within security institutions. Now, the 2019 National Security Strategy was intended to address these challenges, but it contains several critical gaps. What are these gaps? There is insufficient focus on cybersecurity and digital threats. There is limited integration of human security issues such as poverty, etc. There's weak interagency coordination and lack of clear framework of collaboration. Underestimation of socioeconomic environmental drivers of insecurity, very clear. There's lack of community-based approaches and effective monitoring and evaluation. There's insufficient investment in education, vocational training, and social services. Inadequate use of technology and advanced analytics is clearly absent. So this is the National Security Strategy that was signed by late President Buhari in 2019. With these gaps, it is highly impossible to be successful using it to tackle insecurity in the country or to assure security. You can see the global ratings because we're talking of governance. The World Economic in 2025 rated Nigeria grade D on an A to E scale assessment based on corruption perception, rule of law, freedom, and political rights. The Global Governance Index 2024 ranks Nigeria 169th among 191 countries assessed. Nigeria scored 33.63% compared to the global average of 43%. Now, Chandler Governance Index 2025 ranks Nigeria 116 out of 120 countries assessed, with an index of 0.289. The 2024 coming home now in Africa, the 2024 Mo Ibrahim Index, and this most of us know that, of African governance, ranked Nigeria 33rd among the 54 African countries. So you can see that with all this, Nigeria is poorly rated in terms of governance. Now next, climate change and security. Climate change is a significant factor in intensifying Nigeria's security challenges. Long-standing harder farmer conflicts have been exacerbated by environmental degradation, particularly the depletion of land and water resources. This has led to increased competition between communities, resulting in frequent disputes and violence, particularly in states like Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Zamfara, and Katsina. People will be surprised that I put Zamfara and Katsina. Sometimes these disputes assume the textures and colors of ethnic or religious conflicts. The crisis, the issue of Zamfara in particular, where the root of banditry is Zamfara. Zamfara, at the root of that crisis, is hardest farmers' conflict. It was the issue of land between farmers and herders. Those Fulani in Zamfara are indigenous of Zamfara. They are not coming from anywhere. They are indigenous of Zamfara. But they lived in the forest in Zamfara. And probably that was the mistakes made several decades back, because there was no attempt to integrate the Fulani communities in the forests. Yet, even at that time, until I think Abubakar Rimi, late Abubakar Rimi, who was governor of Kano State, decided that because the Fulanis were not enjoying any amenities, any government protest or protection, you are not enjoying healthcare, education, roads, any infrastructure. Therefore, they were not to be asked to pay tax at all. Before then, every Fulani, for every cattle, what is called family tax. For every cattle, you pay for each cattle. Even after that payment, they didn't enjoy anything, because he came out to say he was fighting for the control. That was why he stopped them from paying family tax. But you see, there are several factors. Zamfara. One, because of people like me and you, when we retire, we go back to where we come from. We call on the governor or the local government chairman to tell him that we want to be farmers. We want land. Then people now indiscriminately provide land to farm. In that land he gives you, there are settlements of land. So what is normally done is, all you need to do is to get thugs or vigilante to push them out of that land. And some of them have been in that land for hundreds of years. And when you push them out, they have nowhere to go. You see, this idea of the Fulanis are moving from one place to another, they don't stay, no. Yes, they move, but they move only seasonal. They have permanent places where they stay. They move only seasonal because of what I will come back to later discuss. But they move seasonal in spite of greener pasture. So I think those are the issues that need to. So the issue in Zamfara, because 99% of citizens of Zamfara are Muslims. So nobody will bring that there is issue of religion between Christians and Muslims. But what is happening in Zamfara today is a battle between Fulani and Hausa. It's ethnic. Just like you find that where similar thing happen in Benue, it becomes religious. So it got to a point whereby whenever a Fulani man leaves forest to come to town on market days, he was lynched. So now the Fulani decided any Hausa man who leaves the town, or a Fulani man living with Hausas, who leaves the town to go to farm in the bush, he will be killed. So this is how it started. And now, of course, you know that sometimes some of these things that I mentioned locally, if they are not dealt with on time, they degenerate into something else. And this is how now gradually we started having this banditry issue. Now, there are drivers and triggers for this. Most of those Fulanis youth, and this is a reflection of Nigeria as a whole, because 70% of Nigeria's population is youth, is young. So also you find in Islamic communities. Now, they started having, cattle wrestling among themselves. They have criminals among themselves. They started cattle wrestling. Wrestle cattle from their neighbors. Then they have ready buyers who will move them to Lagos or Aba cattle market. Most of those youths, the issue I'm trying to, most of those youths are, one, they are educated, they are unskilled, they are mostly on drugs. So they must get something to sustain the habit to survive. And I'm happy Chief here said he wants to talk something about drugs. October. They are uneducated, they are unskilled, they are mostly on drugs. And they are unemployable because they are uneducated, they are unskilled, who will employ them? And now the cattle are no longer there. So quite a lot of them became recruits. So they looked for alternative means and they went into this bandit issue. So I think we need to understand, the background of these things if we need to solve the problem. And I think it is not late that this issue must be solved. The community there is the same thing we have, for instance, in Kano City or in Lagos. We have the Abuja who are, turning the flesh for negotiations. We have the Endaba in Kano who are a turn of the flesh in the city. They're the same problem we are having all over the place. So I think it's an issue that we need to deal with. Now, resource shortages contribute to secondary challenges such as disease, outbreaks, hunger, and unemployment. Climate change also impacts crop yields, threatening food security, and increasing vulnerability to recruitment of unemployed youth by criminal and extremist groups. Borno State, for instance, Boko Haram were recruiting young chaps for 500 naira. For 500 naira. And 500 naira is a lot of money for that person. And he's ready to collect it, even though, he knows that there is also coercion. He has to do it, but 500 naira was enough. The arable land becomes scarce, communities are forced to migrate, which often leads to tensions and competition within host communities. Addressing climate change is essential for reducing conflict and building resilience in affected regions. Now, the challenge of national cohesion. I think this is a major focus of this presentation. A fundamental obstacle to addressing Nigeria's security challenges is the persistent lack of national unity. Divisions along ethnic, regional, and religious lines continue to undermine collective efforts to confront insecurity. Some elites promote narratives that question the legitimacy of Nigeria's unity, encouraging followers to view national issues through narrow regional and religious perspectives. Violent non-state actors exploit these divisions to carry out attacks against the population. Political leaders have sometimes deepened these divides by prioritizing regional or group interests over national unity. Terrorism and criminal violence affect all communities, regardless of faith or ethnicity, yet solutions are often approached from a fragmented perspective. Therefore, national cohesion is essential for confronting common enemies and building a safer society. Now, Nigeria's security sector needs comprehensive reform. After all we have said, although democracy has been uninterrupted since 1999, the legacy of colonialism and 30 years of military rule persists. And make no mistake about it, we're still feeling some of the effects of colonialism and military rule in our system. And this is one reason why we should carry out this. The security environment remains militarized, with law enforcement agencies often using assault rifles, as I said earlier, which can intimidate the very people they are meant to protect. Past reform efforts have been fragmented and largely unsuccessful, especially in the police and intelligence sectors. Professionalism in the police has declined due to poor welfare, equipment, discipline, corruption, and training. I'm emphasizing on the police because they have the primary responsibility of law and order, and they are the vanguard of internal security. We must understand that, not the military. Security sector reforms must include all organizations, and personnel engaged in providing, managing, overseeing security, include both state and non-state actors. So we talk of the security sector, it's all encompassing. It's not just the military and law enforcement and intelligence services. It includes even the National Assembly because they have the responsibility of the oversight functions. They have the mandate of oversight of the executive. And the security sector is under it. Also, the ministries and departments and agencies responsible for supervision. Ministry of Health is important for healthcare services. Ministry of Agriculture for human security. Ministry of Environment for environment generally, and things like that. So all this must be brought together in order to carry out these reforms. Integrated reforms are needed for effective coordination, cooperation, and collaboration across all sectors. Now, regime security is very important. Since 1999, democratically elected governments have often prioritized regime security over national security. So what does this mean? It means that governments want to protect themselves first before citizens of the country. You know, when we enter aircraft, when they are given the security, they are safety brief. One of the things they said is that when oxygen masks fall above your head, the first thing you do before you protect the child is protect yourself. I think that's what governments do. Central appointments of key security officials are frequently influenced by political loyalty, regional affiliation, ethnicity, or religion. Security agencies sometimes focus on monitoring political advancement rather than confronting criminal and insurgent threats. This politicization of the security environment undermines constitutional obligations and public welfare. Lack of focus on national security is a major reason why security agencies do not coordinate, collaborate, and cooperate among themselves. For Nigeria to progress, security agencies must shift focus from regime protection to upholding the security and welfare of all citizens. The nature of warfare and security threats is changing. Conventional interstate warfare is being replaced by asymmetric intrastate warfare involving non-state actors. Nigeria faces internal enemies who blend with the environment, making them difficult to identify. Technology is playing an increasing role with the use of drones and artificial intelligence in modern warfare. Autonomous weapons systems can make decisions independent of human intervention. Therefore, security sector reforms must consider these technological developments and leverage intelligence-led, technologically advanced approaches to improve threat detection and response capabilities. Democracy requires the protection of civil liberties and human rights. After decades of military rule, it is essential that security sector reforms reinforce respect for these fundamental tenets. The Nigerian Constitution and various acts passed by the National Assembly safeguard civil liberties and human rights. Oversight by the legislature and judiciary is crucial for ensuring accountability and adherence to the rule of law. Security agencies must operate within the law, protect citizens while minimizing collateral damage, and respect due process. A new paradigm for Nigeria's internal security architecture is needed. This involves shifting from traditional, centralized, military-focused approaches to holistic, community-centered, and intelligence-driven framework. Empowering local communities through community-centered policing. There have been debates on this community policing, and I think our conversation today will provide opportunity to add voices to it. Integrating advanced technology and intelligence across agencies, strengthening legal frameworks, and enhancing interagency collaboration are essential. Public education and investment in prevention and rehabilitation programs will help deter youth from criminal activities. Inclusivity, transparency, and accountability in governance must be prioritized. Now, non-state actors play complex roles in peace building, acting as both threats and potential. They include NGOs, civil society groups, the media, private actors, and multinational corporations. While some non-state actors may undermine national solidarity, such as the accusation against USAID by US congressmen, others contribute positively to peace negotiations and reforms. Civil society's involvement in peace negotiations is correlated with the sustainability of peace agreements. Inclusive and context-sensitive approaches are needed to maximize the positive impact of non-state actors in peace building. Now, to develop an inclusive intelligence framework is a challenging issue, but achievable, I believe. First, Nigeria's federal system helps manage ethnic diversity, but persistent issues such as corruption and inequality highlight the need for reforms. Recognizing local sociocultural dynamics is vital, as governance structures vary widely across regions. Security issues, intelligence-driven approach, community-based policing and justice system that respect local customs are important for building trust and resilience. A holistic security should address mental and infrastructural concerns and risks in unregulated areas. To summarize and give key takeaways. Interior security challenges are multifaceted, requiring a comprehensive and coordinated approach. Key priorities include strengthening governance, addressing root causes of insecurity, increasing intelligence sharing, and implementing community-centered policing. Investing in reforming the security sector and promoting national unity and social cohesion are essential. Constructive engagement with non-state actors and developing a coherent national security strategy that considers Nigeria's diversity will help build a more secure, stable, and cohesive nation. This will require sustained commitment, adequate resourcing, and a whole of society approach involving government, security forces, civil society, and local communities. With concerted efforts and the right strategies, Nigeria can progress toward lasting security and stability. I will end this presentation with this important quotes that emphasize on national unity and cohesion. And I quote, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." Martin Luther King. It is not our diversity which divides us. It is our ethnicity or religion or culture that divides us, unquote. Nelson Mandela. Thank you very much.
Let's give the applause for Lina for the standing ovation. You may unfasten your seatbelts. Thank you very much. You have arrived. So we took note of what we do when we embark on the flight, except that this time around, nothing dropped from the sky. So the issues about regime security versus national security are also well taken note of. Thank you very much, sir. Lieutenant General AbdulRahman and Dambazau. Thank you very much. In fact, at the point during the lecture, I said, I met one of your aides and I said, "Ogano will need water so." Said, thank you very much, sir, officer and a gentleman, for that tour of the force. And I'm sure that we all took notes because we'll have a question and answer session a little later on. And we'll also welcome some intervention from those of us who have been invited here. I've come to join the George First Clubs of Nigeria to explore the theme Nigeria security challenges and the quest for national cohesion. And of course, we have our discussants to speak to the issue. While General Dambazau was taking us through and sharing his thoughts and perspectives on national security,